On that grey morning in Rome, the air carried a different kind of quiet. The windows were slightly open, but no wind entered. The bells of St. Peter's Square rang earlier than usual, resonating with a slow, almost meditative sound. Inside a silent room, the most beloved man of faith made a final request. He asked for no gold, no speeches, no crowds. He asked only for a reunion, a simple gesture with a four-legged friend who had always understood him in silence. And it was at that instant, seconds from the final farewell, that something would touch the hearts of everyone present. And now yours. If stories like this move you, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. It helps us continue sharing moments that speak to the soul. That Roman dawn, the sky was dull, heavy with grey clouds that did not promise a storm. Yet the entire Vatican seemed to sense something profound. There was no commotion, no rush, only the solemn echo of the bells, as if asking for silence. Lying under clear sheets, hands clasped, rested the man who had guided millions with his voice, but who now preferred silence. His eyes remained closed, not from absence, but in contemplation. Doctors, assistants, and religious observers watched with reverence. Every gesture carried the weight of eternity. Between prayers, he slowly opened his eyes and said, with a broken and sacred voice, "Bring Baltazar." Sister Domenica froze for a moment. "Baltazar," whispered a cardinal softly. It was a dog, the loyal four-legged companion who had accompanied him for years. A white, medium-sized dog, gentle eyes, and a heart immense. Baltazar no longer lived at the Vatican. Since the Holy Father had fallen ill, the animal had been sent to Castel Gandolfo under Sister Domenica's care, who fed him, petted him, and spoke soft, almost prayerful words. But Baltazar was no longer the same. He didn't play, didn't eat properly, slept beside an old cassock, and occasionally howled softly, as if sensing an absence he could not name. To understand the depth of this simple request, one had to go back a long time, long before the Vatican, long before the crowds and speeches, to Argentina, when Jorge Mario was just a boy with rosy cheeks and curious eyes. He grew up running through the streets of Buenos Aires, the son of humble and deeply religious parents. His mother often said, "Jorge, every living being carries the breath of God." With this teaching, he learned to respect ants, birds, cats, and especially dogs. He loved street dogs, shared his lunch, sat on the sidewalk, and petted those who feared adults. Once he returned home with dirty knees and a puppy in his arms. "I couldn't leave him alone, Mom," he said. As an adult in the seminary, Jorge always fed the dogs that roamed the convent. Even as an archbishop, he never refused a gesture of care to an abandoned animal. Faith and tenderness always walked together in his soul. When he assumed the papacy, no one was surprised to see him joyfully receive a light-colored dog in the Vatican's inner garden, as if the animal recognized him from another life. And it was exactly that reunion that became urgent that morning. A car was immediately sent to Castel Gandolfo. Inside, Sister Domenica held Baltazar in her arms, gently stroking his head. "He knows, my son. He knows," she whispered to the driver. The dog, who had not eaten in recent days, trembled with anticipation, as if sensing something greater. Time seemed to run against everyone. In the Pope's room, his vital signs were fragile but present. When the car arrived, Baltazar got down without hesitation. He didn't bark, didn't pull on the leash, just walked with steps guided by something greater. The corridors of the Vatican seemed to recognize his pause. Guards and nuns silently made way. At the bedroom door, Baltazar stopped. No one knew what would happen. No one knew if there was still time. But in that instant, everyone understood that the reunion was not just between a man and his dog. It was between two souls who had walked side by side, perhaps destined for each other. Baltazar walked with dignity, slowly, as if wearing an invisible cassock. Arriving at the door, he stopped again, not out of fear, but as if asking permission. Sister Domenica's hands trembled as she touched the doorknob, but she gave a nod of approval to the Swiss guard. The door slowly opened. Inside, all was silent. Light filtered through a white curtain. The Pope lay with his head tilted, fingers resting on his chest, exuding peace. Baltazar did not bark, did not run. He simply entered and sat beside the bed, eyes fixed on the man he loved so dearly. Time seemed to have stopped. The Pope breathed softly, almost imperceptibly. Baltazar leaned, lay beside the bed, resting his snout on the sheets near the Pope's hand. Presence was enough. No abrupt gesture, only closeness and respect. Outside, Rome awoke, unaware of this sacred moment. The world seemed suspended between heaven and earth. Memories returned to Baltazar, the Pope's hurried steps through the garden, his low, measured voice, his hands blessing and gentle. He remembered afternoons under olive trees, when Francis simply observed the beauty of simplicity. Now by his side he remained steadfast. The Pope's breathing was light, but the dog remained vigilant. Hour after hour, Baltazar was the guardian of love. That night, the footsteps of the Vatican echoed in silence. A spontaneous chain of faith formed. Candles lit, rosaries in hand, murmured prayers against the wind. Love announced itself first. Baltazar remained at the side like a white-haired angel. Time passed, yet nothing broke that sacred silence. The Pope did not open his eyes, but seemed to listen. Every gesture of Baltazar conveyed loyalty and tenderness. At dawn, light filtered softly through the curtains, illuminating Francis's serene face. He had passed in peace, without drama, without a final sigh. Baltazar stayed close, snout on the sheet, body near the Pope. When the bells rang, he rose, took 2 steps, looked around and lay down again, facing the window, as if saying, "I will stay here until he is at peace." The Pope's body was prepared with simplicity, a rosary given by an African child in his hand. Baltazar was taken to the inner garden but remained calm, sitting and looking at the sky. News spread worldwide. Pope Francis had passed. Crowds gathered, praying, crying, bringing flowers and photos. Among all the images, one repeated itself. St. Francis of Assisi surrounded by animals. Baltazar became a symbol of pure love, faithful until the end. In Buenos Aires, an elderly woman lit a candle on the sidewalk where Jorge Mario played as a child. She whispered, "He always loved dogs." Now one of them stays to tell the story for us. The story of Francis and Baltazar crossed borders, showing that love is caring for all creatures, respecting every life and recognizing that animals, even without words, love with purity. Today, Baltazar lives in seclusion in a convent in rural Italy. The nuns say he is calm, sweet, sleeps beside an old cassock, and sometimes gazes at the sky, perhaps waiting to hear the voice of the one who never abandoned him. Francis left many lessons: compassion, justice, humility, faith, forgiveness, hope, and above all, love for animals. He taught us that no creature is too small to deserve love, that a dog can be more faithful than 1,000 speeches, and that the purity of the heart manifests in silent care. Take a deep breath and remember, animals are part of God's creation. They feel, suffer, love, and sometimes reach God before us. Do you believe animals are blessed creatures, with souls, feelings, and the ability to love unconditionally? Share your opinion in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, share this message, and if this story touched your heart, like and subscribe.